Maybe. Yes. We
All
are
right.
up. We are live. Everyone is here, except I've got two of Airlim up on my screen. Give me
Yeah.
1 second while I fix that. And Airlim, in the meantime, why don't you give me a brief rundown of the synopsis of this episode?
It was good, and therefore they're the end. No, this episode is basically the integration back of Starfleet. So you see how it's all set up. We see some beautiful things in there. The Admiral's a bit of a dick, which I didn't like, but I can see it at some point. And then they go to find seeds that the Federation have been gathering for centuries to kind of keep everything together, which is good. And then they come back and they get accepted with a big hug. With a big hug. That's pretty.
That sounds about right. This episode, like the past couple of
Oh,
episodes, have had. Oh, sorry.
hold on. I think Mark's audio is double from what I heard on the stream.
That means there's two of me from the future.
All right. That should be fixed now. We think.
Okay.
We'll see. So yeah, this episode, unlike the past two, really only had one storyline throughout it. Like the other two, we had like an A plot, a B plot, and even a minor C plot. This time around, everything kind of just came back to the one singular story. Nothing really was outside of them trying to rejoin the Federation. Like last week, we had the story with the sphere data and the ship and everyone kind of moving on and the main storyline. And this week it's all centered around this one thing, which takes them to that seed vault. So it was interesting seeing the shift in style of the show. That they're not afraid to play with the formatting and do things a little bit differently from episode to episode.
Yeah, for me, this was like the episode that I was waiting for the most. I thought at the beginning of the season this would be the mystery of what happened to the Federation.
Mm-hmm.
But, now what is this, the fifth episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, so now we're a little bit less than halfway through the season, and finally we're here with Starfleet headquarters, and this is what I've been waiting for the whole season, for them to finally reconnect with the last bit of the Federation. And I was right with the crew in the beginning. They were all in like a sense of wonder and awe at all the new technology and the new ships, and I felt like their reaction was what I was going through. I was like, this is incredible. This is so amazing.
Yeah, like that scene actually really stood out to me because that kind of scene is something that I joke about a lot, and they actually made fun of it in the movie episode of Lower Decks.
Right. Where they're like, oh!
Yeah, where they're just like staring at the ship and they're talking about how new and exciting it all is. And in the original TOS movie, that's like a 4-minute section of the film.
Oh yeah,
where there's no dialogue whatsoever. It's just Shatner and Scotty just like flying around the Enterprise and staring at it. And then they made fun of that in Lower Decks. They did that in the first episode of TNG with them looking at the Enterprise and that. And here they did the same thing, but this. I felt like they paid homage to that in like such a great way because everyone running out to the window to see what everything looked like just outside of the ship. They were all talking and looking at things and pointing out all this new stuff that they saw, which to me as an audience member, I was like, oh, this is great because they really are us in that situation.
Yeah. And what I liked about that is that we finally get like a win for the Discovery crew. Like now they can relax a little bit. They can be happy. Give them a chance to actually like they've been through enough crap.
Yeah.
the past 2.5 years. So it's good for them to like finally catch a break.
Yeah. Thinking about looking at these images from the episode that I've got scrolling below, I take back what I said about there not being a B plot. First, did either of you know that Cronenberg was in this episode?
I knew about it from a review, so I knew that he would show up as a character. So yeah, when I saw him pop up, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of crazy." And I like that he's got eyeglasses and they played all into it. His character was very intriguing.
Yeah, I'm really curious about who he actually really is.
Because he seemed to be like a
I
Terran fanboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess maybe either well two things. One, he's part of like kind of Section 31, but then maybe he's from the Terran universe or something like that because it was just the way that he spoke. And then when you see the scene after where she's just standing still in the hallway, I literally was like, oh, I bet he's done something to her. I bet he's figured something out, and he's literally controlling her to do something. I was like, oh, this is giving him up vibes. I want to know more, and it's hooked me on that because I want to know more about it. But he was creepy. Like he gave off the guy from Half-Life 2 at the very beginning of the game. That's when I saw him. I was like, oh, that's a bit weird. That's the sort of vibe I was getting from him.
And now I'm wondering if he's part of the future Section 31, like if Section 31 has survived into the 31st century, now that's giving me a whole new context to the potential Section 31 spinoff with Georgiou. If she is in the same timeline but joins the future Section 31.
Yeah.
She never goes back to the past.
Yeah, that could be really interesting. Just really not confused. Intrigued is definitely the right word about like who he is and what he was doing, and what he's up to. And I don't know if I buy that he's actually from the mirror universe, or maybe he's descended from someone that came over, because he knew for a fact that no one had come over in the past 500 years.
Right.
But to me, I would expect that the mirror universe stuff would probably be classified.
Which is why I'm thinking he's Section 31.
Yeah. So that would definitely make a lot of sense. The only thing that I didn't like about that was, how did Georgiou know that blinking the way she was blinking at the harmonic resonance or whatever of the holograms would shut them down? Like that's all future technology. So that kind of, I was like, it was one of those things I just accepted it, but I was just like, okay.
But I kind of like that scene because it reminded me of like some of those episodes of the original series where they encountered like a robot or something, and they would confuse the robot and it would go like error, and like short out. And so her like messing with it, that was great. I love the way that she did the scene, because even her speech, like she was flipping sentences and words back on them, and they're just like
I thought maybe she just got lucky with it and just like, I'm gonna blink, and then they're like, oh, and then she kept doing it.
See, that would be great too, if she was just like, all right, I'm gonna try a bunch of random shit, we'll see what works, and then I'll play it off like I knew what I was doing. So let's talk about this kind of main storyline here. So they get to the Federation. There's what were the name of the aliens that were having the
Killy.
And these are new, right? We haven't I don't think we've seen these before, have we?
I don't think we've seen them before. No, they're new.
Okay.
The only one I was thinking that they looked like they could have been a different breed was, do you remember in Next Generation when Wesley meets a blue alien that has like a thing to smell, like it's an atmosphere thing? Because that generally really reminded me of that, and the shape of the head as well, like the ridge.
Yeah, you're talking about benzite. That's totally not a benzite.
Yeah. Looking at the fandom entry for them, it looks like this is their first appearance. So they're definitely a new species for this series. To me they kind of looked like a cross between like a Mass Effect alien and the aliens from Mac and Me.
Mac and Me.
Like just like the
throwback.
face. The face looks like looks like one of those adults. But this was interesting because the Discovery is obviously from the past, but they have all the sphere data that was collected from the previous 100,000 years before that. So they're in now. Even though they're in the future, they potentially have more information about the galaxy than Starfleet does at this point. So
Which
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, which is incredible. It's a strategic advantage because, we know that the Federation and Starfleet lost their subspace communications. So, there may be databases that they don't have access to anymore. And they've probably lost like huge swaths of data that they just don't know anymore.
Yeah. Like, who knows if they actually knew what was going on with this planet? Because like obviously, Saru knew what, and Burnham knew what the deal was with the planet that they had landed on, where they had gotten infected. But it seemed like the Admiral Oded Fair, his character, like they didn't know that this planet had once been industrial and that what had happened. So there's definitely missing information.
Yeah. And you kind of look at it as like a real world example. Like, how much information do we have from 1,000 years ago?
Right.
Like, how much don't we know? And speaking of the Admiral, Odette Fair, what an amazing actor. I am so glad he's part of Star Trek now.
Oh, me too.
Like, he was awesome in this episode. Like, I liked him. I mean, yeah, he kind of coming off across as like a dick or whatever.
He
but
was a dick.
but you have to see it from his perspective. Like, these are potential like temporal agents, and he has to treat them as hostile until they prove themselves. So I like that he was a bit of a hard ass. And I just thought he was a great character.
I think his initial conversation with Adira kind of set the tone for who he was. Because like she all of a sudden broke like from who she was, just to be like, listen, Senatol was really sorry that he never met up, but he really wanted to see snow on Earth and that whole thing. And for a moment, like you could see that he was like had that like compassionate, oh well, Senatol was this really sentimental type guy, but I knew him, I don't know you.
See, I like that because it reminded me of the situation with Ezra Dax when she goes to Worf and she's like, oh hey, and he's like, look, you are not Dax, so go away type thing. I like that because I felt like, yes, I can see the connection. So I like little references that can remind me of like the previous ones.
Mm-hmm. And overall, that's what I really enjoy about this episode in general, is they're giving us enough Easter eggs. They're doing enough subtlety where it doesn't feel like overkill. Like, oh, hey, here's the future. Here's all the references that you need. Like, it's very much in the background. And when they first beam in to the Starfleet headquarters, like the background is blurry when they enter, and then they kind of go into the foreground, and the foreground is the holographic map, and you see words like Kazon, founders, like the little
really?
Yeah, so they've it's literally blink if you miss it, but there are some people out there like Trek Core, they're taking screenshots of this stuff and analyzing it, and it's incredible because you see these little points on the map of all the places in the Delta Quadrant, and they've kept updates on it. It's awesome, but it's subtle enough where it's not like hitting you over the head with it.
Right. And this is it's one of those things now where, like, we've talked about this before, how when Enterprise came out, it was one of the series where it's like, oh, okay, well now we're going back in time, we're looking at this era that we're already past. Why are we doing this? And now, of course, I'm watching Enterprise again, and I'm really enjoying it. But now with Discovery, it was kind of the same thing. When it started, I was like, why are we going back to before Kirk? Let's get something in the future past Voyager. Now we're there, but now I want to go back because I want to know what happened between the end of Voyager and 900 whatever years later. So it's going to be one of those interesting things where I obviously we're getting Strange New Worlds, and that's going to go back just after where the last season of Discovery left off, and we've got Prodigy that might fill in some of those gaps there. But I think it's going to be really interesting and exciting to learn about the history of the Federation between those two time periods.
And that's why I loved it when Vance mentioned the temporal like Cold War. He's like, hey, we dealt with time travelers in the past. We made it illegal. Like, you're technically criminals. And all the love that Enterprise is getting lately in like Discovery and Lower Decks, I'm here for it because, you know, for the longest time that show got so much flack when it was on. I'm like, I'm glad that it's like it's a legitimate part of canon, whether people like it or not.
Absolutely. And like looking at some of the reactions online to the new season, it seems like people are really digging this new season. They're liking what they're doing. So hopefully this will do the same thing for the first couple of seasons of Discovery, where, you know, no I mean, people did like them, but the first two seasons of Deep Space Nine were kind of rocky, and everyone was like, yeah, they weren't the greatest. But then as the show progressed, it got better. Same thing with Next Generation. The first couple of seasons were really rocky, and then as they got into the groove of things, they really picked up. So I'm hoping that that's kind of the same thing here, where people will kind of come to and be like, oh, it's gotten so much better, and it just keeps going and just keeps improving season after season. So the big thing in this episode was on the seed ship. Like, obviously them making contact with the Federation was big, and whatever's happening with Georgiou is going to be a big mystery going forward. But the main actual storyline from this episode was them getting to this vault ship and getting these seeds so that they could go and save the Killy. This storyline, for the most part, it was your average Star Trek, like mystery, like how do we solve this problem type of thing. And I like you said, I was here for it. Like it felt just like any other Next Generation or Deep Space Nine or Voyager episode where there was some weird technological thing that was happening and they had to figure out how to fix it, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, I thought it was a great storyline, kind of in the tradition of all the Star Trek like away missions, and it was really great to see the crew be given a task to solve on their own, and they really came together. I thought, because this is the first time we've seen Michael Burnham take full control of the ship, because as leverage, Saru stayed behind while they went on their mission. And to fully see Burnham kind of come into her own character and really take charge, her on the bridge and saying "Black Alert" for the first time, I got chills, because I was like, she's fully taking control right now.
Yeah,
it was great.
And I think one of the things I really enjoyed about that too was that you could see Saru kind of like needling at her, like, where he was like, listen, all of this stuff that you've been doing up until now, that shit's got to end. Like, you have to.
Yep.
We're Starfleet. You're wearing your Starfleet uniform. You have to do things by the book. We can't just get a hold of that mission log. We have to do it the right way. And I think seeing the way that she acted on the bridge when she was in command of the ship felt to me like her acknowledging, okay, I kind of need to get my shit together for this.
Yeah, and I really liked like the looks and the glances between the two of them, kind of that relationship that all like captains and first officers have, like that unspoken look, like they can just look at each other and be like, all right, I know where you're going with this. And I mean, just it's subtle, but even when Admiral Vance mentioned the Kaminar, and Saru kind of did this like half crooked smile, like, did I hear that right? To her, and it's little moments that like that, and I thought Burnham and Saru were great together in this episode. They played really well off of each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed seeing Non in this episode too.
Oh my god,
Just like
Non was the best. I've always been intrigued by her character since the second season premiere, because the only other time that we saw Benzites was in that one episode of Next The Price. And to see her character and to get a little bit more of the Barzan culture was so great. And this was a very emotional arc for her, because she still felt guilty about Ariam's death, and her character arc just came full circle with this episode. I think the actress is great. She did a wonderful job, and this is a wonderful send off for this character. But I hope this is not the last that we see of her.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was thinking about, was like, as I was watching it and she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna stay behind." Then they let her stay behind. I was like, "Wait a second, is she off the show now, or is she going to, like, we haven't seen Book in the last two episodes."
Mm-hmm.
So I
and we know they're both series regulars.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we might see her sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it'll at least be maybe one or two episodes without her, but I'm pretty sure by the season finale, she'll have to come back for whatever the big event is going to be that they have to deal with.
She'll probably fly a ship in or something, or she'll beam them out when something happens. Like there's something big's happening. Oh, I'll beam you out and save you, and be like, I'm so glad that you stayed behind. It'll be something like that, I reckon.
I hope it's not. I hope it's not that cliche.
What else was what else kind of stuck out to you from this episode? Like, what were some moments that you saw that maybe weren't big deals as far as the episode goes, but just like fun or good character moments, or things that you saw that you were like, oh, that's exciting.
I think the biggest one for me is seeing Voyager, like the Voyager J. That, like, we talked about this like last week. Like, I want to see big Easter eggs. Mm-hmm. Like, that to me was just like, when someone spoiled it on Twitter for me this morning, I was like, right, great, thanks for that. But like, when I watched it back, I was like, I really like the fact that it wasn't just like in the corner somewhere. Like, is that Voyager? Like, it literally put it on screen. Yeah, I loved it. I was like, I like this, because even like, I think when I was reading some stuff about it online, like, they were saying like, is this like the same Voyager? Is this just been like tweaked? Is it been like done better? Is it a whole new ship that they had? Is it something like, we don't know? And I was just like, I really hope that comes out in Star Trek Online. But I just loved seeing that little stuff. Like, if you had like the Riker, or you had like the Titan somewhere, like even with the Nog things, I didn't even notice that until someone told me. And I was just like, when you linked it to me, Eric, I was like, yeah, I like this. Like, I would love to see little things like this, because that's what I like seeing in this. It doesn't have to be grand and flashy. If it's in the corner, I'm like, that's really cool. Like, I want to go back and look at all the ships and go, what ship is that? Is that new? Is that like from like 10 years ago? Is that where? And that's what I think that for me stood out a bit more. And a transporter accident. Like, there's always a transporter accident somewhere. And you see that right at the end, and they figure it out. I'm like, good. Like, I could not spend 45 minutes on them trying to figure out how to polarize them again. So those little things kind of really stood out to me.
Just overall, what stood out for me was just how packed with story this episode was. Like, this was a dense episode. Like, a lot is going on, but it didn't feel like overbearing. It was like, oh man, things are going on. And when I did my second rewatch, I was catching like little things and kind of absorbing it again. And to me, this was one of the better episodes of Discovery of the entire series. And it was just that like everyone was working together to solve a mystery. Even the scene with Tilly, Stamets, and Jet
Yeah.
was great. And you've got this outsider like, you guys are horrible at working together. And they're like, no, this is just our thing.
That was probably one of my favorite scenes in this episode. Definitely one of my favorite episodes or favorite scenes of the season, just for that reason. Like the three of them finally coming to terms with, okay, we all have to work together, and this is just who we are. Like,
yeah,
just like, and with that final last line too, with dysfunctional as the team, and Jet was like, no.
I appreciated her interview where it was like, can I get like some chips or something? And the next scene, she's got the chips. It's great.
all of those interviews are great. I enjoyed hers. I enjoyed Tilly with now asking me if that was in the manual, and then the hologram was like, "Oh, is that in the manual?" She's like, "No,
no." And it's great because even 1,000 years of advancement and their AIs are not the best.
Yeah, they still don't understand sarcasm. So good. Really quick, I just want to say hi to Donnie Pearson, who is in the chat with us, who says that he was really that was great to see the Voyager J as well. So that's something that he enjoyed. I missed, like, I rewound it a couple of times, that scene when they were coming through, and I think it was Detmer mentioned nacelles that weren't connected. And I didn't see the ship that she was referring to. So, like, I saw the ship that they said, oh, well, maybe this is a scout ship that looked kind of like a weird attack vessel of some kind.
Yeah.
But I didn't see the one that she was referring to.
I think there's one, like when they first enter, it's on the right hand side and it's got the longer nacelles.
Okay.
They did not look attached.
Okay. So yeah, so I'll have to go back through. I'll have to pull that apart and like just like pick different things out and.
But also in that scene, Owoshikun, she mentions that it's a new constitution. So a new USS Constitution that has like 1,000, 2,000 people. And you have to remember, they come from a time in Kirk's time where these ships maybe had like 200, 300, and in the case of the Enterprise, 400 people. And in the Next Generation, the Enterprise D had over 1,000 people. So now you're seeing like these amazingly huge ships. And I like that she was really blown away that, you know, how far the ships have come.
I like, honestly, I was kind of hoping to see some sort of Borg cube or something. Like just like
yes.
Something like completely off the wall that you never would have expected to see as part of the Federation, like either a Borg cube or like a Romulan ship of some kind, or like a bird of prey.
Who knows? There's still time, man.
Yeah, just something like off, like way off the wall, or like some of these older things that like the Planet Killer, like these are like just like.
Oh yeah,
weird one-off things that we've seen before that would be great to kind of like pop up now again in the future.
Well, that's why I like the concept of the sphere and the sphere data, because it's one of those like ancient Star Trek machines, like V'ger from the motion picture, or like you mentioned, the Planet Killer. It's one of those like ancient civilization things in Star Trek that we're exploring more of.
Well, one thing that I wanted, like when someone spoiled it earlier for me, like I saw the inside of it, and my mind went to, I wonder if the Federation are inside that Dyson sphere that they did in Next Gen. Like they'd just gone back, taken it over, and then that was it. And I was like, that'd be cool. And then I saw the episode. I was like, oh, it's just a thing that floats in space that has giant mirrors on. What a letdown, but it's still kind of cool. I was like, oh, Dyson sphere would have been cool.
I mean,
but yeah,
there's still time. There's still time for another Dyson sphere to show up. But no, that that would definitely be really cool too. To me, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Yorktown from the second Star Trek JJ movie. Just kind of like this sphere with like all these different areas, like right, because the Yorktown was almost like a mini Dyson sphere in itself, just not built around a sun.
Right. Yeah, it was interesting that it was just this like cloak, because we obviously throughout all of the past Star Trek series, we've been told the Federation can't have cloak, all that stuff. Well, all those treaties are probably gone.
Right.
1,000 years. It doesn't matter anymore. So it was a little weird to have them be cloaked like that. Oh, one thing I did notice, we finally get the name of the Orion Andorian Syndicate, the Emerald Chain. And so that calls back to, even the first episode of this season. So we finally know, what's going on with that. But Vance drops a name. I forgot the name that he dropped, but like, oh, that guy's causing a thorn in our side again. Like, he's up to something. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to be a future story.
Who was it that they were talking to about the Emerald Chain? Was that Reno?
Yeah, well, they questioned it, but it came up a few times.
Because I remember just her reaction was like,
she's like, "What's that?" Yeah.
Is that a ricin party drug of some kind? Just like her character is quickly becoming one of my favorites. Just
oh yeah.
Just because. Going back to the interviews again though, Dr. Culbert's interview. So, when they were like, "Oh, so you were dead?" He's like, "Yeah, physically and emotionally, but I'm better now. I was murdered, but my murderer and I are okay now." And it was very weird seeing like them all talk about these things just so matter of factly now, because it's like they've come to grips with, okay,
the weird situations
that just happens to us. So, all right.
Well, that's kind of what like Lower Decks touched upon on. Like every ship has its own like wacky encounters. Like the whole ship that had like all the accidents that people were in, and it's like, this is just a part of Starfleet life.
Yeah. So something else that stood out to me as kind of interesting was that scene where they all rushed to the window to look outside and see what it was. There are a lot more people on Discovery than I thought had stayed on it.
Yeah, initially I thought that they were just left with a skeleton crew almost, but actually when I rewatched the season finale like a couple weeks ago, and they made it clear that people came back from the Enterprise. Like most of the crew came back from the Enterprise. So I know they made the evacuation like a big scene, and that's why people think that, but I think for the most part a lot of people stayed.
So that's going to be another one of those interesting things. Like, we don't really get filler episodes with this series, but like getting one of those like random Lower Decks episodes with people on the Discovery that are now dealing with being in the future that we've never seen before, I think would just be kind of fun. Just like watching them have to deal, like the rest of the crew is off dealing with something, and then we've got this like random sea storyline that's going on with like these two other people who are just like stuck somewhere doing something, and we're like, I've never seen you before.
That's why I would love to see them bring back short treks again. I would love to see some 31st century short treks.
I'm hoping after all this COVID stuff has kind of been dealt with, that they'll be able to start doing those again. Because I'm sure they probably really only stopped because they didn't either feel comfortable or really have the time with dealing with all the other stuff that was going on to go in and actually do them. Because I agree, that would be really fun. I'm trying to think what else did we have going on here. We talked about Georgiou and her random Cronenberg experience. We've got the seeds. How did you feel about the resolution of that? Just like kind of like the ending of that specific thread in this episode.
Well, I like that they figured it out, and that Non made a point that not all cultures treat death in the same way. So whatever you think you're going to do to console him, you have to approach it from a different point of view. And Non made the point that, Michael has been in these situations and she seems that she can adapt and confront problems in a different way. And I appreciated that about this episode because, you have to keep in mind that some of these cultures are completely different from humans. And we're not all going to treat death or life or loss in different ways. And I really enjoyed that storyline. I was a bit iffy at first about, oh no, transporter ghost, because
Right.
we've done that before in Star Trek. But to add an emotional twist to it and to learn that, yeah, his whole family died. Like, he thinks he can bring them back, but ultimately he can't. And even him coming to terms with that, he still is going to die anyway, because Non says, I'm going to bring them all to be buried on Benzar.
Right. Yeah. I thought it was a fitting ending. Like we mentioned earlier, I definitely think we're going to see Non again. I wouldn't be surprised if she finds something out once she gets to
Barzan.
Yeah, Barzan.
I said, yeah, Barzan.
And maybe something's there. Something else that kind of popped into my head while after everything was resolved and Burnham and Saru are talking with Vance, and he's finally giving them some information about the burn, and she's talking about or earlier in the episode she was talking about the Red Angel suit and how that went off and got destroyed, and that they had hit some sort of like gravitational waves or something. Now I'm wondering if Discovery is responsible for the burn.
My theory on that one, I reckon it will. I reckon it will.
Oh man, I don't want that to happen. But
it seems too not convenient, convoluted.
But what's really got me intrigued about what this mystery is, somehow everyone kind of knows the same song.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is that about? And it reminds me of when they first found out, like when Stamets first found out about, all the dilithium exploding at once. He's like, that's impossible. Well, now you have two impossible things, all dilithium in the galaxy exploding at once. And somehow everyone knows this song, even though did it happen 120 years ago? And this is just like everyone knows it. But how? And that intrigues me a lot because I don't know. I don't know what they have up their sleeves.
Right. So Adira seems to think that it was a lullaby that was sung to Senatol when he was a kid. We don't know
which would the timeline that he would probably be around the time of the burn.
Right. So now the question also is, was he involved in that somehow? It's it's going to be interesting. This is one of those mysteries that I like. This is for me within Star Trek. This is like almost like a Lost level, where it's like, okay, we have this thing, and now we have to put all these pieces together from what we're learning in the individual episodes to try and figure out where it actually happened and where it came from. And that's something I know a lot of people like the more episodic episodes of Star Trek where it's not necessarily one thing and then something different and something different. It's like weekly one-offs. But this is the kind of thing that I like, where we can have these weekly one-offs like the Seed Vault, where you have this story that doesn't necessarily go from one place to another, but then we have the overall. So like Supernatural does a really good job with
right.
They used to do a really good job with that. Now with the past couple of seasons, since they were wrapping everything up, it was really serialized. But Fringe was another one that kind of went that route. And just like those like little nuggets where you're like, okay, this is all building to something, and I need to figure out what that is.
One thing that they mentioned that we haven't talked about yet was the size of the Federation.
I was going to bring this up.
In First Contact, they specifically mentioned that there was 150 worlds in the Federation.
Right.
And that was in 2373. And now we know at its peak, the Federation almost doubled in size or tripled in size at its peak. And now to only be down to 38 worlds, that doesn't even include Earth anymore.
Yeah.
It's that's pretty devastating to hear as a fan, because you're like, whoa, then who's left? I mean, if we can like count them all and go down a like top 40 list.
That's something that is going to be interesting to see in the upcoming episodes too, because you have to figure that with the Spore Drive, the Federation is probably going to be like, okay, hey, we need you to go and visit each one of these member planets that we have left and see how they're doing, see what's going on, and report back.
And then you get your episodic type of trek.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking a little bit before about they had a preview for next week's episode, and in that preview clip, Vance kind of lets all the other captains know that the Discovery is special. They're their standby ship because it can emergency go to any planet in an instant. And all the captains, everyone's reaction is like, whoa, like, we didn't know about this technology.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that's interesting too, is that that the Federation, or everyone within the Federation, was able to keep the secret about Discovery a secret that even 900 years in the future, no one knows.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Which backfired on them because no one can corroborate their story.
Right.
And perfect line from Admiral Vance. He's like, now we have two truths at once.
Mm.
Yeah.
See, I'm wondering now is, are they going to, because they mentioned that they were going to retrofit the ship. So I'm wondering now, in the maybe we might get like a bit of a time skip, like a couple months later, where they've outfitted the entire Discovery to make it slightly better, like better shields, better weapons and stuff like that, just to kind of bring it up to spec, but obviously keep maybe the aesthetics of it. So I'm wondering if that's going to happen. But then there was also one thing that I kind of like, I think it jumps back to when they come back to the Federation. I think it's in the second episode where Burnham's like, hey, what happened? And he's like, oh, there's only like the Federation has like 1 or 2 ships. And then when you see it now, it's like, well, there's actually like probably maybe like 10, maybe 20 ships or something. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of impressed because in my mind, when you said, oh, the Federation's in tatters, I thought there's going to be no one, there was going to be hardly anything. But when they come into this whole new Federation, it's like, well, this looks like they've never really been affected that much. It's just there's more technology. So I was kind of impressed with that one. I was like, damn.
I just thought someone needs to go back and pick up that guy from the first episode and bring him back.
Yeah, like he's...
he doesn't need to wait around anymore.
Well, I think that's one of the things that... I can't say it disappointed me, but I was like, okay. Just because based off of what he was telling us, it seemed like the Federation that we were going to have now was just going to be a couple of ragtag groups, kind of like spread across the quadrant, and like maybe like those generational type ships or whatever, where it's like this is what's left of the Federation. It's just like we have like maybe a flotilla here and a flotilla there that are off doing their own things about holding up the Federation ideals. But no, now we know that there is an actual central core to the Federation. So it's not the story that I was expecting to see.
Well, for me, it's like, even though we're in such an advanced timeline, because of the burn, it almost feels like Enterprise in a way, where they're kind of like on their own in situations, and the help's not going to be like, a sector away.
Right.
And so you've you've almost got this frontier feeling again, like some of the earlier series of Star Trek, where it's still about exploration. Because you think, oh, well, by the 31st century, they probably have like most of the galaxy mapped out by now. And now, because of the burn, it's almost like this frontier style again that the prequels did so well.
That's actually a really good point. And something that will be interesting is to see how far away the spore drive takes Discovery. Because if they can legit go anywhere, that means that pretty much the entire galaxy is up for grabs to them.
Right. Do you think that because we had tolls on it, the past season, and now I'm thinking to the tolls on Stamets. Well, only a couple episodes ago, they were tasked with trying to upgrade the spore drive. But now, Mark, what you mentioned that the ship is going to get upgrades. Now I'm wondering, now that they're in contact with the Federation, how is the spore drive going to be updated? Now, can anyone interface with it? Or does it still have to be Stamets? Or no one has to interface with it? I'm wondering how they're going to solve that.
Well, I mean, that's like an AI question too, because if they can build an AI hologram that has the interface in it that acts like a human that willingly can be the navigator, then they're pretty much set with that.
Yeah,
they mention it in I think the episode beforehand where where Tilly goes like, oh yeah, we can like power this with like dark matter and stuff, and they're like, no, maybe that'll be a thing where they'll copy this schematic. So they do say in this episode, oh, we scanned Discovery. Maybe they'll go, okay, we'll look at the spore drive. Now we've got 20 different ships. We can outfit it. Tilly, didn't you mention about dark matter? Yes, I did. Thanks for bringing that up. And then they go, right, we now can.
By the way, we can manipulate dark matter to a point where this is possible.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I feel like that's going to be like a Deus Ex Machina type thing, though. Like I don't know that they would go that. Like there, right. I think there's going to be some reason, like there's going to be some reason why they can't outfit the rest of the ships with a spore drive. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be one of those like thank you for smoking type things where it's like they're just gonna like rattle something off and be like, oh, because of the blah 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 blah, we can't actually do this.
Only one ship can have access to it at one time. Something like really weird like that.
Yeah,
but no, if the Discovery can be that only ship that can do that, then it really opens up the possibility for the rest of this season and into the next, because we know they're filming the fourth season. So yeah, I'm really down with the story where, hey, every week we're going to a different place in the galaxy, and then you have more potential to revisit places that were more memorable in past treks. Like, I would love it if they somehow went back to the Delta Quadrant and maybe we saw, how did the Kazon advance?
Yeah.
Are the Okampa still around? All of that stuff. Like,
just Cass just there in a ship. That's it. You see Cass.
Like she ripped off the caretaker's thing, and it's just Kess like up there like connected to something, the caretaker, and she's just lording over everyone.
But I'm gonna show you. Hold on, I'm gonna show you guys a link.
While you're pulling that up, do you guys think that this season is going to be like season 1 and season 2, where it's just like one overall story for the season, and then the next season is going to kind of not reboot, but kind of like start over again with a new story? Or do you think now that they're kind of in the future, we're going to get more of a multi-season arc?
I think multi-season arc, because I think they won't go back to the past, because I think that if they did, if there's a temporal agency back then, they'll just literally go, yeah, you can't talk about this, and then maybe Discovery have to get back to the future. But no,
we have to go back.
We have to go back because Captain Pike needs us. Well, he's gone.
He's stuck in a chair.
So the link I sent you guys, this was that hologram that was brief, and you can see they've mapped Talax, they've mapped the Kazon Forum, and there's this little thing in green, Federation Deep Space Outpost 38. which is in the Delta Quadrant.
Right.
So you get these little nuggets that, yeah, in the 900 years that we've missed, the Federation expanded out that way. And the blue side, it says, the founders' first homeworld, their fourth homeworld, which references Deep Space Nine, that the founders change different planets.
Right. Well, didn't they change planets in Deep Space Nine? Like the planet towards the end that Odo eventually went back to wasn't their original homeworld, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
See, I would generally like that if they revisited Deep Space Nine. I think that if they rebuilt the set properly and even if it was for one episode, that you could see how Quark's ultimate uncle, nephew took over. But the wormhole was there, and they're like, oh crap! But I'd love to see them kind of revisit. If they just went back to Tylax and just nuked them, because no one wants the whole Neelix.
Oh, come on.
I hate him. I hate him with a passion.
I love your vendetta against the Talaxian people. It's not even all of the Talaxian people. You just want to see them all end just because of Neelix.
I just want something about the fate of Sisko. I want Saru to look at a database of great Starfleet captains again and just come across. I just want something what happened to Sisko. Just give us a little bit.
Or just oh God, what if the prophets blew up the dilithium?
Well, now we're getting crazy. Hey, who knows? Like Vance said, there's as many theories out there as we have of ships. So that was another great line.
Yeah. Just it's so much good. It's so good stuff.
He's a great character. Yeah. I really like the actor, and my wife was like, "Why is he so familiar?" And I'm like, "He's the same actor from the Mummy movies." And she's like, "Oh!" She instantly got it.
And Deuce Bigelow, he was the Bigelow.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Oded Fair, I really enjoy. Because he was also recently I thought he was Jafar in Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
He should have been Jafar in the Aladdin movie. It would have just been so much better with him. He was made for that role. Other random before we get into rating this episode, other random sci-fi stuff that I've seen this week. Speaking about Deep Space Nine and Penny Johnson-Gerald, who was in it, she posted on her Twitter feed earlier this week as she was going in to start shooting season 3 of the Orville. So I'm kind of excited for that. That's I know a lot of people were when Discovery started, they were like, "Oh, the Orville is better Star Trek than Discovery is." I'm like, it's just a good show. It's a really fun, enjoyable show, and I started rewatching it again, and now I remember it's does that thing where it takes a lot of the tropes that you see in Star Trek and just kind of plays with them a little bit. But the third episode of the first season, they're dealing with transgender issues, and I'm like, this is not what I was expecting from this show at all. And I think it does a good job with that.
I have to catch up on the Orville. I did really enjoy the first season. I haven't watched the second season yet. And it does feel kind of like an updated 90s Trek, because they have a lot of people who worked on Star Trek in those days on the crew. So, I keep up with Doug Drexler on Facebook, who designed a lot of ships and stuff for Star Trek during that era. And he's part of the production design for that show. And yeah, so I like that the Star Trek DNA is in the Orville. But yeah, fans arguing which is better, whatever. We can have and enjoy both.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's what's going on with the console wars now. People are like, "Oh, the PS5 is so much better," and then these assholes that are vaping smoke into their Xbox Series X to make it look like it's overheating. I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you?
I wish I had $500 to burn on the Xbox that I could fake a fire on. Jeez.
I tried buying the Series X online, just sitting in the fucking Walmart because Walmart was like the only retailer that was releasing them in batches. They released like some for sale at noon, some at 3, some at 6, and then some at 9, I think. And every time I missed them. Tried that again yesterday with the PS5. I got one in my cart, and the the site fucking crashed before I was able to check out. And I'm just like staring at my screen, just so annoyed. So like now I don't have either units. I'm probably not gonna be able to get either of them until the middle of December.
You know what? I'm gonna wait until the new year. I'll wait for them to do the bug patches and all that stuff.
That was my original plan. Like I was like, I don't need. There's no games coming out at launch that are going to be only on the PS5 or only on the Xbox One. I can wait.
Like call me when we get a ship date for Halo Infinite.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. But like as this week was progressing and we were getting closer and closer to the launch date for both units, I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna try and get one. And it didn't work out, but that's fine. I've been like going through like my storage stuff, and I found I don't know if you can see behind me here. I've got an Atari 400 that I pulled out of storage.
Nice.
Oh wow.
Back behind me, I've also got my Dreamcast. I can't find my games for it though.
Yes.
And
Dreamcast.
The AV plugs for it are S video, and I don't have anything that has an S video input on it anymore. My PS2, for some reason, when I plug the composite inputs into my my AV receiver, I get audio but no video. I've got an RCA to HDMI adapter plugged into that. It works, but everything looks like really fuzzy. So I don't know if there's a problem with that. So I'm trying to get all of that worked out, but not that it really matters. I can play all that stuff on new systems now anyway. It's just I don't know, just one of those things.
Skies of Arcadia.
Yeah. So yeah, let's get into our ratings here. Airlim, what would you give this episode?
I'm gonna give it a 5 and 4.
Nice.
Neelix's whiskers. Every single week, I'm going to think of something else to add to that.
No, leave Neelix alone.
He's a bad character, and I recently watched an episode of Voyager where Seven knocks him over, and I'm like, why didn't you just kill him?
I like the actor though.
Yeah,
good
actor. Ethan Phillips is great. Yeah. I'm with Mark. I think this is a solid 5.
Nice, and I can't break it, so I'm gonna go with 5 as well. This episode, I think it delivered everything that it needed to, and this is like the halfway point in the season. So like from here out, it's just going to be more interesting as time progresses. And I think this was a solid. This would have been like a mid-season finale. If we had
almost
this back in the day. But since we only have 12 episodes this season?
I thought it was 13.
13? Let me see. We've got 13.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we've got 1 or 2 more before we actually hit the midpoint. Next week is Scavengers. As long as these titles are correct, and so far they've worked themselves out to be. And I don't have a synopsis for this one just yet, but it does look like Book is going to be back in that episode.
Yeah, so this was that what we saw in the first season trailer. They're kind of in that quarry, breaking out maybe some refugees or something. So yeah, I'm really excited to see Book again. Hey, there's going to be more Andorians, so that's always a plus. And hey, who doesn't love a jailbreak episode? Let's go.
And it's for me, those episodes are always fun though too, just because it's like you're going to get like all of that techno babble for how they're actually going to break out. So it's like okay, I'm always sold on that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that is going to do it for us for this week on the Riker Maneuver. What do you guys have to plug for this next coming up week? What are you guys working on?
Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy VII Remake. I completed it in April. I've got all the stuff, and I've got something like 7 hours of gameplay footage of me just go through, and I'm just like, frick's sake, cool, let's do it.
Yeah, just working on more stuff for Ranger Command. Got some cool plans in the works to finish out the year. So hope everyone who likes Power Rangers checks that out.
And over on the Illuminerdi side, tomorrow at the Comic Bug in Manhattan Beach, we'll be hanging out with Jason Font from Power Rangers Time Force. He'll be there signing copies of Sins of the Future, which came out, I want to say, 2 weeks ago.
Yep, 2 weeks.
Pretty decent.
I haven't read it yet. I've got it sitting on my desktop. I pulled it out from the Boom files. I was like, all right, I need to read this. And I think that's really about it for us. We've got the Illuminati Wrestling New Order on Sunday night. As always, no streams tomorrow because of Jason Font, but I'm sure we'll go live on like Instagram. Live from the bug. And then for me personally, I think I'm just going to be working on either Full Throttle or Day of the Tentacle because Microsoft just released remastered versions of those on Xbox Game Pass.
Well,
so
I think I know what I'll be doing.
Those were like all of those old LucasArts like point and click adventures were like always like my favorite games back in the day. Monkey Island was definitely my favorite.
The one I liked the most was The Dig.
The Dig,
Remember The Dig?
Yeah. That's what I was hoping that was going to be in this re-release pack too, but it wasn't. That and Loom. Like those two, I really want to see those get remastered.
I'm going to throw in Broken Sword.
Broken Sword. I don't know if I know that one.
Point and click game. It's like the best game ever. It's probably like £3 on like Steam or something.
I'll have to look for that one. What was the other ones that I always kind of liked? The Sierra, like King's Quest and Space Quest. Those were always fun. Like I think with those two, like just the music, like because those came out like right when the like CD-ROMs were starting to get really popular, so they like fully orchestrated all the music for a lot of those games. It was just always cool. But yeah, so again, that'll do it for us here at the Riker Maneuver. Catch us next week with episode 6, Scavengers, and we'll see you next time. If I can hit the right
everyone.
Button. Bye.
Hit it.